Thanks for joining me again with Teaching Through the Bible as we go through the book of Numbers. Now we're going to go into chapters 18 and 19 where we see again God's response, just so like we saw last time. This again gets more into what we might expect we'd see in Leviticus, but again, it's not because it's being just thrown in there haphazardly, it's because this is a response to what's happened. And it talks about the duties of the priests, the duties of the Levites, these two groups. And when it talks about them, it gives us actually, again, just like last time, gives us some new information that is added to what we already knew, that really more specifically applies for once they enter the land, because preparing for the promised place. So this is still part of that. So again, this is the same kind of thing that we saw before. But here, we're getting some more information. Also interesting to notice with this, the staff budding with almonds on it. Why is it almonds? Go check out Jeremiah 1. I think there's a connection there, and we'll talk more about that when we get to Jeremiah. So then 18 and 19, what we see here is some more specific rules that maybe we haven't seen before and get a little more insight. We see that the food that comes from these sacrifices, some of it goes just to the priests, which means not to the rest of their family, not to the women, not to the men who maybe they have some kind of skin disease or something that for some reason they're excluded from the priesthood. It's only for them. But there's other food that is for everyone. That everyone is provided for. But certain sacrifices that are considered more holy, you can only have very specific people eat them. Really, all of them, even the rest of them, only the priests and their families can eat them, so not anyone else in the community. But then you also have ways that the Levites in general are provided for, because you had the priests, but then all the Levites get provided in other ways, a lot of it being with tithing. And so tithing, that's 1 out of every 10. So if someone has 10 sheep, they give 1. And so this is how the Levites were provided for. And this is super important because the Levites didn't get land, and it specifies you're not going to get land. They have a place to live, like they may have a city or something, but they don't get all the land that goes with it, which you can't go to Walmart. You can't go to Kroger. You can't go just buy food from the store. Okay? You grew your food. And so they had, if they don't have the land to grow the food, what are they doing? Or if they don't have the land to have the farm animals, as it were, the cows and the lambs and stuff, how are they going to get this? Well, they get the tithe from all the other tribes. But then they themselves also tithe to the priests, which is something kind of interesting to notice. If I had never really thought about this until recently, but if you are in a ministry position, if you are at a church as the pastor or something like that, do you need to be tithing? Because it seems like the priests, they didn't tithe. They were the ones that were tithed too. So that's just interesting to notice. But we also see, though, this earlier, we had the census. We had 5 shekels per firstborn that was beyond the number of the Levites that were counted in the census. Well, that apparently continues on indefinitely, because that's illustrated here as they continue that. And you have this covenant of salt. It says it's a covenant of salt. What does that mean? Well, salt was basically what you could use back then. They didn't have refrigerators. Salt can keep you from having something go bad. So that's something that makes it last. A covenant of salt, likely meaning that this is something that's lasting. This is not a temporary thing. This is not till tomorrow or next week or next year. This is something that continues. Now, of course, in the New Testament, many things, as they continue, they look different because of how Jesus has fulfilled and expanded upon them. But this is not something that's going to be done soon. This is not something. Remember, what's just happened? We just had a rebellion where people said it's not. We don't want Aaron being the only one in charge. We think all the Levites should be priests, or other people saying, well, we don't think Moses is in charge, right? They wanted to change how things were going, and God's saying, what I'm talking about with the priests, with the Levites, this stays as is. This is not about to change when you get to the promised land. Now, just like last time, we saw that there were sacrifices, and that's how there's able to be mercy. We get another reminder of that here in chapter 19, when we're looking at purification. How does this happen? We've seen before in Leviticus that there's there's the water that you wash with in order to be clean in a variety of situations. So some things, particularly sin and stuff, you have to sacrifice and you have to bring an animal. Well, do you have to bring an animal every time you're unclean? No, actually. What happens is a lot of times something, you have this thing makes you unclean, and then you have to wash, and at evening you'll be clean again. Well, it's not just any water, as it turns out, which is significant. It's not any water. It's only specific water from the priests. The priests have to make this water. Just like only Jesus says he's the living water, right? Jesus says it's water from him that gives us life, not just from anyone. So what they do is they take a red cow, okay? Red cow, not just any cow. Maybe this is supposed to help them visually remember blood. Blood is this thing that cleanses them. And you burn it with hyssop, with cedar wood, with scarlet yarn, all these things that we saw back earlier, we saw these cleanse. They're associated with cleansing. That all goes in the fire as well. You burn it all, you get these ashes. And when you have these ashes, then you take the water that we already talked about, and the ashes go in the water. And then you have what the priest will give. That's what goes on a person they're washed with to be cleansed that evening. So that's what's going on here in chapter 19 as they take this concoction that's this kind of water. And it says here in verse 9, and they shall be kept for the water for impurity for the congregation of the people of Israel. So this is, and it says right after that, it is a sin offering. So you have kind of this other way of doing that doesn't involve every single time bringing a sacrifice. And so in certain ways, in certain stipulations, depending on what it is, you could do things this way, which is great for these people that don't necessarily have like an unlimited supply of sheep and goats to do this. And I'll link that other video. I'll link below the other video that has when we've previously seen the hyssop and the scarlet yarn and the cedar wood. But the last thing we'll notice here is that the cleansing water, it comes at a cost. Because we see here that someone has to have this cleansing water, put it on the other people, right? And what happens? Chapter 19, verse 21. And it shall be a statute forever for them. The one who sprinkles the water for impurity, so that priest who brings the priestly water, puts it on them, shall wash his clothes. And the one who touches the water for impurity shall be unclean until evening. And whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and anyone who touches it shall be unclean until evening. So, the priest who does this, there's a cost for him. The same as with Jesus, how he is able to cleanse us, but it comes at a cost for him. It's not something where he just snaps his fingers, right? There has to be, there are repercussions for him sacrificing himself. For him cleansing us, he's sacrificing himself. He's putting himself at a disadvantage. And that's something else we can see at the very end of this chapter 19 as we see God's response again to rebellion. So we've got a few more of them. And we still got some more to go. So we'll look next time 40 years later. They're finally going to be able to get ready to enter the promised land, but we're not there yet. We're not quite where they get to that preparation because more is going to happen to this people before they get there. And we'll look at that next time. Thank you for watching that video. I hope that it helped you learn a little bit more about the Bible today. And if you'd like to continue to learn more about the Bible, then we have plenty of other videos on the channel. And if this has been helpful for you, then you can always let me know by subscribing to the channel. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to help you learn even more about God's Word. Thanks.